Hello, everybody. This is going to be a review of Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve. It's just come out over the weekend. Box office numbers are looking really strong. I did get a chance to see it. So if you feel motivated, please hit the like and subscribe. And let me get in now to my review of Dune Part 2. Thank you. Let me start off with that I did not see this movie, and I want to emphasize I did not see this movie in IMAX format. I did see it in just the standard format, and still I had a very good movie going experience. I actually might want to try and get back and see it in IMAX. I'm undecided, but even though it was standard, cinematically, this movie is just a great achievement. Villeneuve's always had a good eye. I think his strength is in his how he frames his shots, how he shoots a movie, how he films it, and Dune Part Two is no exception. From start to finish, you are in this world. You're absorbed by this world. Every aspect, the tones are rich, the detail, sound wise is just great. You're really you're part of the experience, and it's just a really good. Like I said, even though I saw it in standard format, I've heard IMAX is preferred. Even in the format that I experienced it in, it was a very good movie going experience. We start off where Dune Part 1 pretty much left off. We're with Paul and his mother Jessica, and they've been picked up by the Fremen in the desert, of course, and they are heading into Fremen society. This is where they're going to go in and be accepted by the Fremen and live amongst them. And it's really well done. We have Stilgar, who Javier Bardem does a magnificent job. He actually brings a little levity to this heavy material, this heavy subject matter. I enjoyed him very much. And as we get to the siege, this is where the prophecy really starts to play in, uh, where we have Stilgar, who's a true believer, and he truly believes that Paul, and specifically Paul, is their savior that will bring them out of the desert. But then we have some skeptics amongst the Fremen that really think the prophecy is just a device to keep them down, to keep them from to keep them waiting for someone to come save them. And so within the siege, there's this division of believers, and this is where Stilgar approaches Jessica, because the Fremen's Reverend Mother, Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, is dying, and he wants Jessica to assume that position. And this is where Jessica really, as a character, develops. And I think this is she really does a good job. Rebecca Ferguson, the actress, I did not like her too much in the first movie, but in this movie, she really comes through. So the ceremony, she to become the new Reverend Mother, she takes the water of life, and we know at the time that she's pregnant with Leah, and she takes the water of life, and in this ceremony, it's she goes into a deep state of transition, a deep state of a metaphysical state, and it awakens the Aaliyah within Jessica. Aaliyah's just a fetus at this point, and it awakens her mind. And this is where an angle that's not in the book, but Villeneuve specifically, this is his angle, and I really enjoyed it between Aaliyah and Jessica. So Aaliyah, the developing child in her womb, speaks to Jessica, and then Jessica speaks to Paul. And this is Jessica just really becomes really strong. She becomes the Reverend Mother, and she just becomes a real force. And her goal is con- to convert the non-believers, and this is her goal, and she's determined, and this is what she starts to do. And this is where it gets into this thing about the Fremen of the North and the Fremen of the South, and the Fremen of the South being more fundamentalists. And I'll get more into this later, but Jessica's goal is to convert the skeptics, which are more in the North. And then, then her son she'll be behind her son in this his path to becoming their leader eventually. And I just think it was really well done in this part. And now we get into the development of Paul. He doesn't want to go along with his mother and the prophecy just yet. He wants more to become one of the Fremen. He wants to learn their ways and fight more alongside them. So this is where he goes, and he to learn their ways. He learns their fighting, their language, their skills, how to survive in the desert. And this is also where his relationship with Chani grows during this time. And I'd have to say, it wasn't as distracting as I thought. From the book, it's good. Chani's a true believer. She's with Paul the whole time. And let me also explain, the book's it's a longer time frame in terms of when they start their war with the Harkonnen and the Imperium. It's a matter of years. In the movie, it's a matter of months. I believe it's like 6 months. This entire from the end of part one to the end of part two, I believe it's, like I said, 6 months. So it's a little compressed. Um, anyways, Paul and Chani obviously develop into, a relationship. They're lovers. And this is where, he's learned their ways. They're fighting. And one of my favorite scenes is their attack on the spice harvester. It's really well done. Again, some good action, good fighting, good choreographed fights. Um, I really enjoyed that part. Again, the cinematic aspect of it was really well done. Um, and then we have where Paul learns to the Fremen way of, the desert power, and he calls up a sandworm, and it's the biggest one they've ever seen, and he takes it and he rides it. And this just emphasizes more into the Fremen's belief in this prophecy of him being the one uh, that's going to lead them to their paradise, and from this world of basically slavery. So, this is, like I said, this is the part of the movie where Paul develops his skills, his relationship with Chani grows, and it's well done. It's actually well done, and I'd say this encompasses pretty much the first third of the movie, and it's really well done. And then Villeneuve takes us to Gidi Prime, the Harkonnens' home planet. And it's right in the middle of the movie, and it perfectly splits up the first half of the movie with the second half of the movie. And honestly, this was my favorite part of the movie. This is where we're introduced to Fade Ratha Harkonnen, and he is portrayed by Austin Butler, and he does just a fantastic job in this movie. And I think come Oscar time, there should be a nomination for his portrayal of Fade. And what's also really this is what makes this my favorite part of the movie is the scenery, how Villeneuve depicts Gidi Prime, and it's really interesting. And the planet itself apparently revolves around a black sun. So inside the buildings, everything's normal. It's in color, but when you go outside, it's this rendering of this black and white effect, and it's just a spectacle on the screen. And it's just they must have used some sort of infrared filming technology, because it's just how it comes across is just great. And we're in how it's utilized is we're in this arena where Fade is fighting. It's spectacle, circuses, blood and circuses, and he's fighting the last of the Atreides survivors in a fight to the death with the knives. And it's really well done, and it's actually shows his he's actually he's obviously the antagonist, and it shows he's just a really good villain, and it's just a really well done part. And it splits up the movie so well. And it's just a really great scene. Now we start leading into the last half of the movie. It's the second half, going into the last third of the movie. So by this point, Jessica's convinced the skeptics of the North, and she wants to strengthen her power base. Like, again, the fundamentalists of the South are more true believers. They're the fundamental Fremens in this belief of theirs. So she wants to go to the South to solidify her power base, and she wants Paul to go with her, but he's very hesitant because he's already had the visions that he could possibly be the cause of this holy war, this holy jihad, which that term is never used in the movie, but it is used in the book, that is the cause of millions of deaths. So he stays behind as Jessica heads to the south to basically secure her power structure. And this is where he reunites with Josh Brolin, so that would be Gurney Halleck. And he comes back on the scene, and he offers up that Duke Leto, Paul's father, hid the House Atomics uh, on Arrakis, and they're going to go retrieve them. And I just felt the use of the term, I know it's from the book, but that's a terminology from 1965 when the book was, came out. Atomics is a little behind the times. I think they could have, for this future tale, and for our day and age, they could have maybe come up with a little more better term. But they go find the House Atomics, and they're going to utilize them obviously later on. So, but when they get back to the siege, it's been attacked by Fade, and thousands of Fremen have been killed in the attack. So they have to retreat. So they have to go to the south where they're safe from threats of more attacks by Fade and the Harkonnen. So this is where Paul eventually gets to the south, and this is where he starts falling into the prophecy. And this is where Chani and his relationship actually becomes something of a distraction in the movie. And Chani, of course, is played by Zendaya, and I don't think she was right for the part, honestly, and I really don't blame her, because I don't, with this material, the subject matter, it's pretty dense, it's pretty deep, but I I don't think they wrote her part. I don't think they did her any justice. So they kind of, this is where the relationship turns more into like she's a teenage girl, teen angst, a jilted teen, because Paul is now gonna, fulfill the prophecy, and he does. He takes the water of life, and he again goes into this deep state of it's a coma, it's a transitional state. And when they take the water of life, they're gaining the powers of, the past Bene Gesserit, and then he also gains the power of foresight. But Chani actually has to. This is where I got a little confused. She actually has to help him come out of this transmorphial state with her tears, which she adds to the water of life, and then she puts it, on his lips, and he that's when he truly arises as their Messiah, as the Kwisatz Haderach. I believe the Fremen term is Lasine al Gaib. Lasine al Gaib. So this is where Paul now truly is their prophet, and he wants to address them, but still he's not yet their leader, and he has to challenge for the leadership, and that's with Stilgar. Well, he refuses to do that, so he proves his power of this vision, this foresight that he has, and he reaches basically into two of the Fremen's minds and their souls, and he tells them exactly what they're thinking and they're feeling, and so he's allowed to address the Fremen, and this is where he truly becomes their prophet, but it's not a prophet of light. It's a pretty shadowy prophet. It's a prophet going into darkness, and you could see where George Lucas probably got the Anakin tale from Frank Herbert's Dune, because this is where you see someone of great ability, great promise, but he's going into a very dark place. And I got to say, Timothy Chalamet really delivered in this part. He was convincing in this part. And so you could see Anakin, and in Lady Jessica, you could kind of see the Emperor, shades of the Emperor behind Paul. And so it's not going to be a shining path. It's going to be a tale going into darkness. And I thought they did a good job, and it's really well done. And you could see the definite symbolism and the definite reference to it from in you know the influence that Frank Herbert's work had on George Lucas. So Paul now is Duke Paul Muad'Dib Atreides of Arrakis, and he's challenging the Emperor. He's challenging all the great houses, the Harkonnen, and so the Emperor comes to Arrakis to confront Paul, and this is where we're getting into the final part of the movie, the final battle. And I know this battle has been talked about. It's been likened to Lord of the Rings, I believe, specifically uh, the Two Towers. And let me just tell you, let me get this straight. Let me put everybody back on track here. This is no Lord of the Rings. This is no Two Towers. This is no Battle of Helm's Deep. This final battle, this is where we use the House Atomics. They blow a hole in the shield wall, and the worms just come crashing through. And the Sardaukar, who are supposed to be the best, they're the Emperor's elite troops. The Fremen tear through them in 2 seconds. It's really not. I mean, on the screen, it's pretty spectacular, but the battle itself is just it's somewhat underwhelming. It's it's not that great. It's okay. I guess it serves its purpose, but that's the most it does. Where in Lord of the Rings, specifically the Battle of Helm's Deep, that's the full middle of the movie. And that battle is just epic. That's the probably the best battle scene on film that I've ever seen or experienced. And that battle is just epic. Where this last battle, it serves its purpose. At the most, it serves its purpose. It gets you from a point A to point B or whatever. And so the Fremen just tear through the Emperor's troops, Sardaukars, in no time flat. And pretty soon we're at the Emperor's door, and Paul just walks through, and we've also found that Jessica's uh, the Baron's daughter, and which that's also known. That's in the book, so it wasn't a big surprise. But Paul kills the Baron, and it was very underwhelming considering how well Skarsgård did in the first movie with the Baron. To the second movie, he was really again underutilized. The Harkonnens in general in this movie were just they went from such great villains in the first one and the buildup of that, and the second one to just they were kind of lowered in their stature in terms of their villainy and the way they calculated. They were just kind of lowered to allow the Fremen to defeat them so easily. And so Paul kills the Baron, and it's like I said, it's pretty much underwhelming. And this is where Paul challenges for the Emperor, and he refuses, and the Emperor's played by Christopher Walken, and you only see him in a handful of scenes, so there's not much impact there. And this is where Fade comes back into the picture, because Fade's going to be the Emperor's champion to fight Paul to the death in a knife fight. And they do fight, and it's a very good fight. Actually, it's pitched back and forth, and Fade really is as I was watching it, I thought he was a superior fighter. The choreography is very well done, but of course, it's not going to be, if you know the manuscript, who wins. And Paul does triumph, but again, I can't overemphasize enough how good Austin Butler is in this movie. And it was a good fight. And then finally, Paul goes to the Emperor and makes him submit and to his rule. And he says, well, I will spare you, and I'll keep your bloodline going, and I will take the hand of your daughter, Princess Erlan, in marriage to solidify the empire, to keep it, solidified. And this is where Chani becomes really, from the book to how she's portrayed on screen, this is Villeneuve's Chani. This is Villeneuve's vision. From this point on, I believe the manuscripts are thrown out the window, and now it's become Villeneuve's Dune. And this is where Chani truly becomes the jilted teenage girl, because in the book she knew the long-term goals and saw the plan, and saw that Paul, by this gesture of marrying the princess, that it wasn't going to be a true marriage. It was just for the sake of keeping stability with the great houses. And it was just a formal gesture where Chani would be his true wife. But this is where Chani decides that she's jilted and she's mad, and she basically just walks out like a little spoiled teenage girl. So now it's Villeneuve's Dune, and I thought it just kind of, at that point, it brought the whole thing down. It brought it to a level that, because this movie really started out as a thinking person's sci-fi epic, and at that point it just became a very simple, not very not very intelligent story of just, uh, again, a girl whose hurt feelings are hurt, and she's just going to walk out in tears and walk off and just be pissed, for lack of a better term. Where in the book, Chani was, a little more secure than that. Um, she saw the plan, she saw Paul's plans and the goal. But in this now, it's Villeneuve's movie. It's his Dune, and I just thought it was a poor way to send this movie off, which definitely they're setting this up for a sequel. They want a third movie because then we have the Fremen. They're going into the great houses of come to Arrakis to challenge Paul. They do not accept his terms. So the Fremen are going to go off at, in the ships to battle the great houses, and Chani storms off in a huff, and we're completely set up for a sequel, but it's not going to be anything to do with the texts of say Dune Messiah or Children of Dune. From this point on, it's Villeneuve's Dune, and we're in unknown territory. Okay, so let me finalize here. Let me wrap it up. And my final take would be to recommend to see this movie. It's a great experience, a great time at the movies. What do we go to the movies for but to escape? And this you really get into this world. You're really surrounded by it. You're embedded in it. So it does a good job cinematically of that. It's a good time at the movies. Um, Again, what kept me entrenched and in the story, I think Villeneuve's aspect of Aaliyah being unborn, unlike in the book where she's fully born and she has the full powers of a Reverend Mother, but her being unborn, communicating that way within Jessica, through Jessica to Paul, uh, really was a good angle. I liked it. I liked how it worked with the story. Um, and she's a precursor of things to come. It also sets up for a sequel, if not sequels. She's going to be a major player henceforth. Also, Gidi Prime really split up the action, the Arrakis. Um, it really, right, being set in the middle. I mean, this is a 2.5 hour plus movie. It was just great how Villeneuve did that, where he placed it, and it gave us a really another good insight to the Harkonnens, and just the way it was shot and the visuals of it was just fantastic, and it was my favorite part of the movie. But I am critical of some things, and I've already mentioned the North and the South thing. Now let me kind of explain that. So in the North, you had the skeptical Fremen, and they were the more younger Fremen. They were more progressive in their thinking. And in the South, they actually kind of made fun of the Southern Fremen as set in their ways, fundamental in their religious beliefs, not very, didn't think on a broad scope, just very narrow vision. I don't think that was a good message in this movie. It's nowhere to be seen in the book. It's to me it kind of struck me as a geopolitical message in a movie that really shouldn't have anything like that. For what's going on today, how do we look at the younger progressives, looking down upon more fundamental people, maybe people of some sort of religious beliefs. And that occurs, and that's going, that's happening. Look around you, that's happening in this country every day, and we hear about it in the news. And I go to movies to escape. I don't go to movies for that message. Maybe you won't pick up on it, but I did, and I just don't like that in a movie. Movies are escapism for me. And then another negative for me was the character, how they portrayed Chani. Zendaya, again, I don't really blame her. I just don't think her character was given a very good arc. Instead of going to a place of maturity or a developing, she actually went backwards and became very immature. Uh, you know, she was hurt. She was hurt by what Paul did to, he had to do that. That was a very political move on his part to keep the empire intact. And uh and she was for that in the book. She was for his holy war. She was with him. Actually in the book, again, the war, the fight on Arrakis takes place over years. They Chani and Paul actually have a child together that dies, so that really strengthens their bond as well. There's none of that in this movie. She just seemed to be like, again, a jilted lover, and that was that. Very immature how she reacted, and I didn't really like that. So that kind of brought it down. I like to see characters develop. I like to see them develop intellectually, emotionally, intellectually, and that's the type of movie this is. It's a really, why I do still kind of like it is it's for a sci-fi film. It's on an intellectual level. It's kind of a thinking movie. There's a lot going on, but that move, how they portrayed Chani, kind of just watered it down, and that's not good. But overall, um, I would still recommend to go see the movie. It's a good enough movie experience, and I think that's about all I have. And thank you for listening to my review. And take care. And bye bye for now.